That feeling of you just have lost your vitality, you've lost your will to continue because you are just deeply exhausted. I'm Laura Vater. I'm a medical oncologist at the IU Simon Cancer Center, and I also teach medical students at the IU School of Medicine. It was something that was a long time coming. I had a medical degree, I was a resident doctor, I was in my second year, about to come into my last year of residency, and I had all of these months crammed together back to back, about 5 months of very difficult rotations, so that I could apply for fellowship and have time in the fall to interview for fellowship so that I could perform and be ready for the next step of my life. But what happened was that I had 5 months in my residency where I was very sleep deprived. I would be working 28 hours on call. I'd go home, I may rest, but then I'd never fully rested because I had just this ongoing, very busy schedule. And for me, it was really the accumulation of sleep deprivation that affected my mental health. The reason I knew this was happening to me was because I had been through this before, and I would work hard and then I'd rest and then I'd feel better, and then I'd be sleep deprived again and I would rest and I'd feel better. But it reached a point of exhaustion that I wasn't able to recoup that rest. It was perpetual exhaustion. You know, when I went into college and I studied all those rigorous science classes, I knew I was going to be studying for hours and hours. I knew that when I went to medical school, I was going to be taking all these hard classes and dedicating myself to studying, working 80 hours a week or more, trying to do all these other things in my life, like research and applying to the next step, which for me was fellowship. I think the part that I did not anticipate was the decline in my mental health, because I'd never faced this ever before medical training. All of those factors together would make my mental health come to the point where I didn't have the desire to live anymore. And I didn't anticipate that. That really scared me and caught me off guard, because I was never that person. I was always top of my class, highly resilient, high achieving. And when I found myself in this place where I felt that I was not good enough, that I was somehow defective or weak, I couldn't cut it, it really caused me to struggle with my own identity and who I was as a person. I remember sitting in the parking lot after a long shift. I was working in the ICU, and I had just had multiple patients that had died, and I was thinking, I don't care if I make it home alive. Like that feeling of you just have lost your vitality, you've lost your will to continue because you are just deeply exhausted. That was really the critical point that I knew something was really wrong. It was really only the face of my young daughter, who was 2 at the time, that really kept me on the road that morning. She was turning 3 in about a month from then, and I kept saying to myself, all I have to do is live to her 3rd birthday. I have to be there for her. No. I think that's really the point that I said, I think I could use some more support here. Maybe there are tools and resources that I don't have. I remember that we had this wonderful woman who was a psychologist who ran this mind-body session for our residency. She had said, you know, if you're ever struggling, you can reach out to me. So I crafted this email to this psychologist, about to send it. And I remember that blank cursor was just staring back at me, and I wanted to hit send, but I was so afraid of what it was gonna mean for the next step of my career. If I send this message, is my program gonna know about this? Am I gonna be forced to take a leave of absence? Am I gonna have to be admitted to a hospital? Am I going to be able to submit my application for fellowship? It was really close to fellowship application. And I had all of these other things in my life that I needed to do in order to achieve the next step for me. And I had all of this fear surrounding this email, that was gonna be the thing that derailed my whole future. I think the biggest thing was my concern about my permanent record and how it might affect my fellowship application, because I so badly wanted to be an oncologist, and I was so worried that step and that seeking support was going to be the thing that kept me from that. And I had worked so hard to get to that point in my career. It was fear, it was uncertainty, it was doubt of if I really needed that support. There was also this, well, no one else is needing that support, so why should I do it? So I saved that message and I never sent it. I wish that I would have sent it. I wish that I could have told my former self that there are people out there on this campus who really care about you and who really want to support you, who can provide you with tools and resources and tips and support that can help you through this process. But I was so afraid it was going to basically be the thing that was going to ruin my future career. And I was so worried that if I took a step that was going to take me off of the course, that I would forever regret that. I went through it on my own. The support that I had was in my own personal networks, my husband, my good friends, me trying to research how in the world how to dig myself out of this hole. And it was such a short-sighted thing that I didn't actually seek mental health support in the moment that I needed it most. Looking back, I wish that I would have gotten that support back then. I did what most doctors do, is we try to figure it out on our own. We're going through this in isolation is what it feels like, when in truth, so many people around us are going through the exact same thing. I think most people that come into medicine are highly altruistic, caring, intelligent people who truly want to give their lives in service to other people. Most doctors are told that you're lucky to have a spot. There are thousands of people that wanted this slot and you got it. So you better prove yourself, you better work hard, and you should never show any sign of weakness, and you should always work to the highest level of your capability, starting now and for the rest of your career. I think that message is very, very clear from the start of medical training, and that there's often this focus on self-sacrifice so that we can serve other people. And so we find that if that means being sleep deprived or overworked or not going to the bathroom for 8 hours or skipping your lunch break and your dinner break and working all the time, we see that as a form of self-sacrifice. And that is really promoted in medical culture because you're giving up yourself, your time, your health, your well-being for another person. But the reality of that is this doesn't serve your patients very well. We know that when you're sleep deprived, doctors make more mistakes. That's proven in countless research studies. We know that when you're sleep deprived, you're more likely to cause a needle stick in yourself, make a procedural mistake, make a cognitive mistake, and we know that you're much more likely to get in a car accident and even to have exhaustion, which leads you to leave the field of medicine altogether. Because we need doctors who are thriving, who have meaning, and they care about patients as human beings, so that they can have high levels of empathy and that they can continue in this career, hopefully, for decades to come. But it really has to be the two things together. That is caring about the clinician as a whole human person, and that includes a person that needs to rest, a person that needs to hydrate, a person that needs to eat, and also this deep care of patients and patient safety, which is related to the well-being of the clinician. I'm very open about what I've been through with medical students, residents, and fellows. I once had an attending in my own program that said that they'd been through something similar. Turns out that this person was a leader who is also in charge of making decisions for who joins, right, the fellowship. And I had a lot of faculty that have been open about their story since. So I do not think that it would have affected my path. I think that it could have given me resources to better thrive in that moment. From what I've learned about the leadership on campus, that they would have met that with compassion. And I know since that a number of changes have happened, both in my residency program and fellowship, to do away with sleep deprivation in many ways for trainees. Very positive things that have happened. I just wish that I had the ability to talk about it sooner, because I think it would have helped me, and it potentially could have helped a lot more people too. I think that every single person in medicine, whether you're a medical student, resident, fellow, attending, would benefit from therapy. There are so many things in medicine that we would all benefit from talking about, whether that is burnout, moral injury, compassion fatigue, medical mistakes, grief. So if you are in a place where you are exhausted, you're overworked, your mental health is declining, although we're taught that that is just a side effect of what we go through, truly that does not serve our patients very well, and it certainly does not serve us well. We are better at what we do when we are well. I have a lot of compassion for the person that I was, because I was working very hard trying to push myself exceedingly hard to succeed in a very difficult environment. And no one around me knew this. And I know now that my peers also were facing the same thing. And so I have a lot of compassion for my former self, knowing that I was doing my best, knowing that I had a nearly 3-year-old child and how difficult that is just to be a parent of a young child and also to be a resident. The first thing I did once I secured a position was reach out to find a therapist. Looking back, it's really interesting that I waited so long to do so. I wish that I hadn't. So that's something that I have put into my life that I started doing basically as soon as I felt that I had the professional security to do so. Other things I do in my life is I've chosen a career where I generally can get a good night's sleep most of the time. So I am not having to deal with overnight emergencies. I don't have a lot of call. That was a strategic decision that I made for my own mental health, knowing what I had been through before. I also exercise regularly. I meditate. I generally try to eat a well-balanced diet. I spend time in nature. I reach out and talk to my friends, usually about once a week. I have these structures in place that also support my mental health. But I think that we all need to have those structures in place before we think we need them. It doesn't have to be that you are just working and working and working all the time and exhausted, and then you find yourself in this place where you have no support. I think that really trying to look at a structure is how can we put that in place from the very beginning. That's going to serve our residents, our fellows, our medical students very well. My daughter's only 8. I hope that I will be open with her very early on. I want to share these stories with her. I want to normalize that we are all human, that we are all living this human experience, and that the human experience is not experiencing happiness from the moment you're born until the moment you die. That we all experience a range of emotions, and that our environments have a big impact on that, and that we can recover, and that there's hope.